Okay, we're now recording.
Fantastic. Thank you, Matt. Right, so Development Management Software Pathfinders event launch today. So introduction to that. Welcome, my name's Chantal Danson and I'm working with DLUHC as part of this and all the 8 LPAs that have been funded for lots of different projects in particular themes, which we'll go through. So thank you. And the agenda being covered today, the introductions around the DLUHC side of things for the Pathfinders projects, and council intros and project overviews with their objectives, team working and outcomes, and then a discussion to follow for anybody that's got any questions. So, right, Matt, over to you, please.
Great, thank you, Chantal, and hi everyone. Thanks for joining us. So my name is Matt Woodhill. I work at DLUHC as a head of planning software. I'm going to give you a bit of an introduction to how the Pathfinders work and a bit of a broader sense of what we're doing around digital planning in the department, and I guess how many of you are becoming part of that on your own journeys. So we've got 3 work streams primarily within our digital planning programme. We've got something that's focused on digital local plans and the kind of data and data standards underneath that. Got a big piece of work on digital citizen engagement, and some of you might have seen publication of a recent opportunity for a prop tech fund, which links into this. I think applications closed just a week ago or so. And then we've got this strand in the middle, modern planning software, which is what the Pathfinder relates to. So we just jump to the next slide, Chantal. In terms of our vision for what modern planning software is and means, hopefully this is something that you also share. We're talking about a new, more modular software landscape that can encourage digital innovation and provide access or better access to the underlying data, ultimately with the goal of helping to automate routine processes, which should in turn support faster and more certain decision making. So within this vision, it's quite clearly pitched, especially in that latter part, on the development management side of planning, which is what I know many of you are working on, and that's what all of the Pathfinders you're going to be hearing from today relate to. Next slide, please. Now we have 2 main pieces of work on the planning software side of things, and they both link to 2 recent expressions of interest opportunities. So one of them is RIPA BOPs. Those are 2 tools, reducing invalid planning applications and back office planning system, which are being developed from scratch by a small group of local authorities to respond to some of the challenges and needs that they've identified over the last couple of years. And there are 11 councils now involved in that project. This is the second part of that, Development Management Software Pathfinder, which for us is the first time when we've been funding councils to specifically work on looking for better ways at using the tools that are currently already available to them, whether that's through existing relationships with suppliers or whether there are other third-party tools that they think can add some value to their planning services. So over to the next slide, Chantal. Just a really quick overview, because you're going to hear from everyone in detail. These are the 8 councils who were successful with their applications for the Pathfinders, and they applied under different themes. So we've got theme 1, making better use of planning application data, and theme 2, improving publication of planning data. Theme 3 is more about sharing of reusable components or practices, and there is definitely going to be crossover between these themes and the projects when you hear from them in more detail. But just to give you an overview of who you're going to be hearing from today. And then I think the last slide from me is just to really talk about, when we talk about a Pathfinder, and what do we actually mean, and how is this different to other improvement projects? I think that the main thing to emphasize is that there's a stronger focus on collaboration. We've got a 12-week time frame, so the projects that you're going to hear from today are due to share their findings from their work at the end of April in another showcase event similar to this. But there's an opportunity here for the teams to work in as part of a blended project team. And what we mean by that is you could have council staff, planning officers working closely with representatives from their existing software providers. But also it's an opportunity, perhaps in some cases for the first time, for planning staff to work more closely with their colleagues elsewhere in the council on the IT side, digital delivery and transformation teams, really to get to the bottom of some of the core user needs within their services. think the second thing to really emphasize is that through this kind of 12-week Pathfinder approach, the emphasis is very much on learning and iterating and slowly taking slow incremental steps forward, rather than necessarily designing and delivering a full working solution. Do not expect giant kind of new features to be rolled out across the country off the back of this Pathfinder, but hopefully it is really that first small step towards that conversation at a more national level. Thirdly, then, we're following the principles of the Local Digital Declaration. I'm not going to talk about the Local Digital Declaration in detail at the moment. It's a, for those of you that are not familiar, it's a kind of shared vision for the future of digital services in local governments. There are 5 core principles that underpin that, and 2 of the key ones I've pulled out here. Number 1 is designing services around the needs of users, so really understanding things from their perspective. And the second thing is designing services and components and technology that ultimately can be shared and easily reused by other councils around the country, rather than, let's say, being locked into expensive and lengthy contracts with suppliers when we all know that when it comes to changing, it can be a little bit painful. Lastly, and this is also actually one of the tenets of the Local Digital Declaration, we're going to be working in the open throughout this Pathfinder programme. And what that really means in practice is there's going to be more events like this, 1 a month. There'll be a show and tell where you'll be able to hear project updates from each of the teams. And we're going to try to publish a monthly blog post, which is just a different way to consume the updates at different moments. So really looking forward to hearing what everyone's got to say. It's back over to you, Chantal.
Thank you very much, Matt. Great. So we have the introductions and project overviews, and we are starting off with Basingstoke and Dean, please, which I believe will be Matt.
I think it'll be myself, Greg. I'm not sure if Martin Coles will join me in terms of the M. I'll be doing the main speaking, but if there's any questions or anything, if we're doing questions, then Martin might want to chip in. So the next few slides outline our key objectives.
Can you see those okay, Greg?
Teamwork,
Oh, we lost you for a moment there.
opportunities and outcomes. Oh, should I switch my camera off? That might assist.
Okay.
That may be better. I'm not sure how much of that kicked in, or if I should start again from the beginning.
Maybe start again, because that's better. Yes.
Fine. Yeah. The next few slides just outline our key objectives, the team working opportunities, and outcomes from our project to increase access to our data, and look at how we use that data to manage our workload as case officers in the development management team. Also to review live performance by management. Our bid is, I think, probably comparatively small to some others, and is only in respect of the Pathfinder at the moment, and not any RIPA or BOPS funding that you just covered there. In terms of our objectives are on the screen now. We'll look at the options for connecting to or extracting data from our system, mindful of the possible impact it might have on our system's performance as well. So I think it's quite important for the IT part of our team. We'll research the use of Microsoft Power BI to process data to present users with dashboards designed to manage and report performance of the application process for individuals and teams. There's quite a lot of breadth of useful information there to extract from systems and present to officers and managers. And our overall output is to provide guidance for other local planning authorities to achieve this same outcome. Next slide. So in terms of team working, we've drawn together a kind of a multidiscipline, multi-skilled team to combine system and data knowledge with the analytical skills to help develop the approach, plus the end users as well, so case officers, the planners too. We're in contact with other organisations such as other local planning authorities and DLUHC themselves in terms of its pioneering work, but also the use of Microsoft Power BI, so we can learn quickly and try and pick up on some of the lessons that others have. And we will look to explore and exploit synergies with other Pathfinder streams as well. I think from previous understandings, there may be some areas of overlap with some of the other projects. Takes us on to the next slide. So our final end output will produce a guidance, as I said, to enable other local planning authorities and ourselves to determine how this can be achieved, almost like some procedure notes where possible. And I think the ultimate for us would be if we could produce a prototype to accelerate development. That's an aspiration rather than a set goal. If we can do that, then we would be very pleased, and it will include important considerations such as system impact and resources as well. So that's it in terms of bathing stakes. Quite a quick one. I think we had 10 minutes each, but as I said, I think our project's a bit smaller than some others. Not sure if we're doing questions. Chantal.
That's great. Yes, thank you, Greg. We're actually saving questions till the end, so if that's all right. And I think a number of them will be fairly short, just because we're just starting out, and I think they may get longer as we go on to other show and tells in the next month. But thank you. That's great.
Great. Thank you.
Right. So on to Sevenoaks District Council with Evelyn, please.
Thank you, Chantal. My name's Evelyn Gilder. I'm representing the planning service at Sevenoaks District Council this afternoon. Our project title is, as it says on the screen, to explore and implement solutions to improve access to tree preservation order information and hopefully help make the application process much more simple for applicants. That's the key outcome, is access to information and improving the application process for those that need to submit an application to carry out works to trees. Next slide, thank you. So I'll just rattle through. I've got a slightly different presentation to before, but I'll just rattle through a summary of how we've got to where we've got and why we're doing what we're doing. So our application was submitted to help us introduce improvements to the way that applications can be submitted for both trees that are protected and those that are in conservation areas. It should be noted that this improvement was identified about a year ago, and the funding that we've received will allow us to buy in additional consultancy and expertise from IDOCs and recover the money spent on the internal resources. We do have an excellent IT team and colleagues, and they've already helped us get quite a lot of way along the process, but we do need to buy in external help and expertise to help us actually complete the process and deliver what we need to deliver. Key to this is our customer experience. At Sevenoaks, our mantra is that the customer is anyone but me. And we're really keen to make sure that the customers can access information and self-serve at a time that suits them and not at a time that is dictated to us through the restrictions of our business hours. We receive about 1,000 requests each year for information about constraints related to trees. We are in a green belt. Sevenoaks District is covered by a 95% green belt and 41 conservation areas. So we do have many thousands of trees that are on private land and owned by either homeowners or landowners. We receive lots of inquiries every year from those owners, and in particular conveyancing solicitors and landscaping work companies who have been employed to carry out the work. In the last year, we've processed about 700 applications to carry out works to trees. Applicants first have to determine whether a tree is protected, and they can do that already by looking at our already excellent interactive map that we've developed in-house. It's on our website. We have an interactive online map on our website. The sticking point is that once they've identified that there is a constraint, they need to then come to us to get more details about that information. So the desired outcome of this project is to make that information available. We have that information available on our in-house document management system, which is managed by iDocs. It's on our system, but we use iDocs software, and we are trying to work with iDocs at the moment to make that information public. We would like to create a standardised and consistent process that all local authorities can benefit from, and in essence, a one-stop shop. So owners of trees can go onto our website, find out whether there are restrictions or constraints attached to a tree, download that information, submit an application either directly via our website or via the planning portal. That, in theory, should only take 15 to 20 minutes. At the moment, it's probably taking 2 to 3 days. Customers, the benefit, the lasting benefit that we'd like to roll out really is to all customers, particularly the tree owners and landscaping companies, and also through word of mouth, because if we can develop a system that other planning authorities can use, then ultimately landscaping companies in particular and conveyancing solicitors also will really benefit, because there'll be consistency across all planning authorities. At the moment, a landscaping company will have a different experience with every planning authority that they work with. And so it would be really ideal if we could develop a system that is streamlined and consistent, that all customers can benefit from. Thank you.
Excellent, that's great. Thank you very much, Evelyn. So we are then on to North Devon Council. Maria Bailey, please.
Thank you, Chantel. Yeah, Maria Bailey, I'm the Planning Service Manager at North Devon Council. Next slide, please, Chantel. Our project very much concentrates on cleaning up our Section 106 process. We have been for some time through audits, etc., at risk by the way we hold information, the way we collate information and the way we disseminate it. We are looking to basically work with our software provider to put in place something that's going to be quite unique to us. And it's something that's got to be accepted by all users, and hopefully something like the rest of us that we can all share as being a way of utilising software to actually deliver a much more concise and efficient way of collecting and distributing Section 106 monies. Next slide, please, Chantel. I won't go through this. You can see how complicated it looks. That's our as is, and that's our to be processes. Basically, what we're looking to do now is to put that into a live software application. Next slide, please, Chantel. Pathfinder Objectives. As I've already stated, basically de-risk our Section 106 process once improvements are delivered. Number 2, have all contributors to the Section 106 process confidently using the system to populate and report form. At the moment, we've got all sorts of different Excel spreadsheets, etc., all over the place doing different things. Objective 3, and this is one that we've started to develop fairly recently in the project. Obviously, in terms of collecting information, the HELA, the Housing and Economic Land Availability Assessment, is a big provider of information to us. We're just starting our local plan review, and we're looking to develop a module with our software provider that we think is going to be quite unique, and hopefully again will help others in other authorities. We want the ability to produce with confidence reports, returns on time with reliable real-time data. At the moment, like most of us, I think, there is also always the worry that they're not 100% accurate. And to be honest, they're also very resource heavy in terms of delivering them. And then finally, obviously sharing our process maps, the HELA specification, and ultimately ending up with at least one new model for other deaf customers. Next slide, Chantel. Who will we be working with? I think this is self-explanatory in terms of those outside of the organisation, but obviously in terms of inside the organisation as well, so that we're all working on this together. Like other authorities, there is a big cross-service project team involved in this. Next slide, please, Chantel. How we will be working, planning stage, you'll see where we've got the little ticks, that's things we've done to date. So we've got the project plan, we've allocated resources to roles, we've shared with the internal consultees. We're looking to get the kick-off meeting arranged with DEF, although to be honest, we've already been talking to them about, they've seen our as is and our to be, and we've been talking to them about the Healer project. We then move on to initiation, so things like procurement licenses, modules, project approach specification, and supplier confirmation of capacity and capability to deliver. Again, we've already had discussions about lead-in times with them. We've then got the delivery development element, so bi-daily internal team meetings. Thankfully, with Teams, etc., and the virtual world, that's working really well. Looking at development plans and user acceptance. And then we're moving into the closure phase, so formal close down, capture of lessons learnt, sharing of good practice, handover to next phase project team business. And then obviously review. It is really important that we the capabilities being embedded within the business, and that basically the benefits we want from this have been realised, because we are, alongside your money, obviously putting a lot of time and resource into that. Next slide, please, Chantel. Our outcomes, I'll start at the top. Obviously, a centralised area for Section 106 information and the Healer with real-time access for all. I'll then go in a clockwise direction. We've got customers see a much improved end-to-end time for applications, and that ties in very nicely with my own sort of service and corporate goals for the planning team. That the community benefits from efficient collection and allocation of all agreed Section 106 monies. That we've got collaboration with DEF, both sharing improvements to other planning organisations. That the process mapping software used for future development management reviews, so we can calculate pounds against human resource efficiencies. And then finally, possible other learning opportunities and new local authority relationships. I think there was more on there. We could have gone on forever, but those were the key ones, Chantel, and I think that's my last slide. Oh yes, and we really look forward to learning and sharing with you all. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you very much. That's great. Okay, on to London Borough of Harrow Council, please, which is over to you, Mark.
Thanks, Chantal. Good afternoon, everybody. So I am Mark Lupa. I'm the implementation manager for Harrow's NEC Assure system, and I'll also be overseeing the Pathfinder implementation as well. So if you just want to step to the next slide, or next two. Okay, so the our overall project aim is to address the inefficiencies and the delays with the consultee comment processing that we have. And to do that, what we aim to do, and we're a little bit ahead of the game with this, in that we've already done an end-to-end process mapping of our customer to planning officer processes, so how they do their day-to-day work, how the customers submit the consultee request forms, and what we've done is we've overlaid these with the issues that they've told us, so that we've got this full end-to-end picture of how it all works and what we need to do, what we need to address. So then the next step for us then is to look at how we tackle the processes. So it's not just the kind of technology element to this, there's also the processes that the customers use, what is their interaction with the system, and then how can we improve that through technology. So what we'll aim to do there is to look at the NEC's consulting module itself and look how that works and look how we can fit our processes into that and identify the areas for enhancements in that, and then develop a to-be process model for that. So at the end of this, we should have a method of how we can implement this. Okay, next slide, please.
So should be there.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. So so the teams themselves, so we've got a number of teams involved in this. So from the project side, so we have a project team. So I will be coordinating not only NEC's wider assured delivery, but also this Pathfinder as well. So and inbuilt into this as well, there are 2 analysts that we've got dedicated to doing this Pathfinder. So we've got one that's from the digital side. So they are looking at the customer relations and the customer areas and processes. And then also we've also got an analyst that's involved in the planning side, so the back end processes and methods they use with for doing their work. Also, we have a system admin who's very closely involved with the system itself. So they provide that bridge between the users of the system and the system itself. So they've got a kind of in-depth knowledge in the functioning of the system and the how the users interact with it as well. And also on the coalface, we've got the super users who are they obviously use the system on a day-to-day basis. So they're really our first point of call for any issues or any sort of development, any ideas that we kind of throw across to them. And also they'll be involved in the testing phase of this as well. As well as that, we will also have customer engagement in this. From a supplier perspective, we have the product lead who coordinates not only the consultee element of the module, but also how it fits into the wider product as well. A project manager who we generally work with on a day-to-day basis, who will be involved in this as well for any sort of work from the supplier side. We have a product analyst as well, and to obviously do the to work with the product as well, to provide sort of processes around that. There's also a business consultant involved who works with the product analyst as well. There's a DBA. I've put DBA there, but this could be a technical consultant, developer, or any other sort of supplier area that we would need to sort of bring into this. I've just put DBA in there because at the time I suppose that my thought was around just making sure that that we would have some coordination in terms of making sure that data inputs are correctly done. I think you put the next one on the next slide, Chantal. Another one for technical teams. That's it. So also on the Harrow side, we have technical teams involved in this as well. Solution architects, database analysts, infrastructure lead, integration. So these may be drawn in as required as we sort of start to get into the kind of the depths of the product itself. Okay, and our outcomes for the project. Well, the aim of our outcomes for this are to refine and improve the customer experience. And also what I should say is to frame this is just to say that our outcomes will be customer and also the back-end planning officer outcomes for those as well. So from the customer perspective, we want to provide them the clarity of information on where they can get forms and what information we need from them. Essentially, we've just been listening to what they've said to us, and so these are kind of defining our outcomes really on this. And then we also want to automate forms, look at any areas where we can make it easier for them to fill in information and get that information to us. Also, we're looking at automated acknowledgements as well, so that they feel engaged, or they feel that their submissions have gone through and have been acknowledged and time stamped as well, so that they know they're within the time frames that we've set for them. From a planning officer perspective, we want to improve the information data transfer to get away from as many manual processes that we have at the moment for inputting data into our systems, and try and automate all that, ideally where we can have a customer fill out form, fill in their information, and then it goes straight into our database and then straight to the desk officer. That's our real end goal in this, is to maximize the technology to give us that automation that's going to streamline this and improve timeframes on this. Also, we're looking at sort of monitoring and stats as well on there, just to make sure that we're on top of all the information as well, and we know if we know where there are any delays or any areas which we need to focus on straight away. And notifications as well back to the customer as well, so to give that much needed feedback to the customer, so that we are being as responsive as possible to them. Hopefully, at the end of the day, this will improve and streamline the whole process for customers and our planning officers as well. And I believe that's essentially it. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much. All right, over to Dukesbury Borough Council. So over to you is Amy.
Yes, thanks, Chantal. So I'm Amy, I'm Programme Officer at Dukesbury Borough Council. I've just got a little bit of background about Dukesbury. So we're a predominantly rural borough from North Gloucestershire, but we are one of the fastest growing districts outside of London, hence the growth and the planning applications and the reasons sort of to look at these things. We have also been awarded Garden Town status, but currently our household stand at approximately 44,000. So we're definitely not a huge borough, and customer care and placemaking are both priorities for us as a council. In terms of the project, what we're looking to do is create a planning application tracker. So what this will do is provide automatic updates to applicants and agents throughout their planning application process. And this will reduce the demand on planning officers, who currently have to provide simple and verbal and written updates to applicants and agents throughout the process, because they're not being informed of where their planning application is, and in turn we hope that this will free up their time to focus on other tasks. In terms of the project team, we'll be looking at project management using digital developers, planning support, IT support, and iDocs consultancy. And we've already started talking with iDocs to see how they can help us. So in terms of outcomes for the project, so to start with, we're just looking at sort of prototypes and how we can make the information available for applicants and agents, but moving forward we might open this out wider to members of the public and things. But for this project, our outcomes would be an improved customer experience for the applicants and agents, stopping the need for them to chase for updates and things. But we also want to improve the information that we give to them around the anticipated timescales for their planning application. And this will be done on the tracker. It will sort of give them an idea of how long each stage will take and when they can expect decisions and things. And this will reduce the avoidable contact that we get and in turn improve productivity from our planning officers, freeing them up to sort of get on with the day-to-day work that they need to do. And we hope by the end of the project we'll have a tracker displaying clear information about the stage the planning application is at, and as I said, when that next stage is expected to be reached. And in a nutshell, that's sort of what we're looking to do.
That's great, thank you, Amy. Brilliant. Over to Nottingham City Council, please. So over to you, Mick.
Hi there.
Sorry,
not it's fine.
Laura.
My name's Laura Pullen, and I'll be presenting for Nottingham City today. Our bid is very much around improving the publication of planning data as a whole. I'm not a planner. I work within the GIS team, but we do sit within planning, and we actually administer the DM system for planning. So a lot of our bread and butter is around managing data, extracting and publishing information for wider reuse. And we might do that through online maps, dashboards, open data, etc. So we've always worked very closely with planning in the past to publish a lot of their information from bespoke apps about conservation areas, planning apps, etc. And there's been a greater and greater desire from them to publish performance level information. And we started exploring things like dashboards to publish this information internally so that it can be used for kind of case management, as well as to our elected members or to the public. And I guess this funding bid just came at a very timely fashion for us to explore that a bit further. So this growing demand for planning information means that really we needed to improve the efficiency of reporting and the data maintenance side of things. So our project is around extracting information. Sorry, can I have the previous slide? So it's very much about exploring the publication of planning data. So we use both Uniform Enterprise as a result of this project and FME Server. So two new bits of software to further expand our ability to publish information from our DM system. We've concentrated the project on publishing PS1 and PS2 metrics, but obviously this would have much wider implications if we are successful with extracting various bits of information from the system. And as I've said, we want to publish this to lots and lots of different audiences, both internally and externally. For those of you that don't know, Uniform Enterprise kind of sits on top of our DM software, and it's a reporting tool. And FME Server is a data extraction tool, so for extracting, transforming and loading data. So these should hopefully complement each other. One works within our DM software and one works outside of that, and hopefully they will be able to extract various bits of information for utilising in various different tools that we would like to use to publish the data. Next slides, please. In terms of the outcomes of our project, I've put very practical ones on here in terms of we would like to ensure that we have internal use of our planning performance data for planning managers. We would like to be able to extract information for statutory returns to upload to national systems easily. We would also like to explore kind of creating area-based dashboards for our councillors and others, and producing this information openly for others to utilise to create products on top of or to understand all of the information. But I guess the biggest outcome of this project is really sort of understanding the art of the possible in terms of publicising our data. Next slide, please. In terms of the project team, obviously we've got working closely with our planners, and then obviously we have a lot of skills in-house in terms of data management, spatial analysts, etc. We're also working obviously with IDOCs in terms of Uniform, and One Spatial, who are an FME reseller. Lots been happening already. I mean, I'm sure in terms of progress to date, after the procurement exercise, which takes an awful long time, we've actually already had Uniform Enterprise installed on the 27th of January, and then we were trained initially on it yesterday, and we're expecting our FME server install and training to happen week commencing 7th of Feb. So it's all moving quite quickly, and I think we're going to be very busy in the next few weeks. And it's really nice to catch up with some of the other projects because there are a few synergies with others, particularly Basingstoke, who have already mentioned the same. They're exploring very similar things to us, and it'll be good to learn which of these tools are most effective in delivering the ability to share planning information with everybody.
That's great. Thank you very much, Laura.
No problem.
All right, London Borough of Harrow, please. Over to you.
Hi, so it's Matt Riddell, Digital Business Analyst, working with Georgia Manzana, Senior UX Researcher on this bid for Havering. The project is using the Acela software system, and what we plan to do is to deliver an end-to-end user-centered planning pre-application process. So what do we mean by end-to-end? That will be a new customer e-form on the Havering website, which is going to be a new e-form because there's currently a non-editable PDF, so they all get emailed in essentially, and the web content's quite unclear for the nature of the service. And the new Dynamics 365 e-form, which will be the first D365 e-form for the council taking payment and booking information as well as some kind of service request, will be part of an existing parallel program that's moving on from Dynamics 2011. So we have that corporate program behind us as well. So it's quite exciting to be doing that first D365 form. We'll also be improving the reporting of planning data, making those records more easily accessible for various customers within the council and also via the website for customers. And we're going to be massively improving the process efficiency because currently it's all based on rekeying and onerous admin tasks. And we're under theme 3, so we want to share the reusable practices with other LPAs. It may be broader than just Acela councils where we're using Power BI. Already heard from, I think, Basingstoke and Dean on their Power BI plans as well, so there's potential there. But the main components will be for Acela councils, and we engage with Rother, Yarmouth and Hillingdon as part of our user research for this piece. So where those Acela councils can take a toolkit or methodology and approach for also doing a fully digitized pre-applications journey, Acela will have worked with us and know how to do that with them. So the e-form will take application data, so contact details, location information, and directly integrate that with the new process in Acela. The files and documentation informing that pre-application advice that we give will be integrated directly with Civica 360, already integrated with Acela. Payments will come through Civica Pay on the front end and directly through an EOD file feed back office incoming and receipting systems in Fusion. And the booking information will be taken through diary functionality in D365 and feed shared teams calendars for 3 set days that they provide pre-application advice per week. Customers will also be able to reschedule within certain business rules, and we want to take 95 to 97% of demand through the e-form. Customers will mainly be businesses, so architects, development companies, and other agencies. So we're hoping that we only get a fraction of demand coming through the phone lines, completely removing the need for CSOs to work on this as they currently do. So it'll be a much better customer experience with better web content on the front end. The non-cashable efficiencies are around that CSO effort and also back office effort to tie up payments and application reference information, and to do a lot of rekeying off the existing Dynamics processes into Acela, into Civica 360, into emails, back to customers and so on. And we want to see service growth as well, so hopefully more people use the pre-application service, and also vis-a-vis the actual planning application demand, we hope that translates into more subsequent planning applications with more valid applications. Next slide, please. So we've got an existing digital transformation team working across the digital business case on a range of different projects. So we're taking slices of everybody really for this funded project, but with the 12-week time frame, we're trying to focus lots of people to prioritize this work. Myself and Georgia and Manish, the Power BI specialist, will be contributing much more time into it. Those are the core roles, and then with the contributing resources, significantly less. But for the core project team, somewhere in the region of 0.3 to 0.5 FTE, we think. And we're already working with Simon at Acela, having commissioned work packages for them, paid for some work to go ahead up front. Next slide, please. So yeah, the multidisciplinary team approach we've just sort of discussed briefly. We are already having weekly stand-ups and haven't yet brought the Acela supplier into that, but will be, this being, I guess, day 1 of week 1. We are in the process of producing a full project plan, and we're just trying to understand some kind of pre-kickoff dependencies we've got around a corporate ICT project that's moving lots of different software for the council off P-series servers onto Microsoft SQL. That will allow us to use Connect Power BI and better interrogate the core database in the Acela. And while this began as let's provide better data around our pre-applications process and the conversion into planning applications, it's going to be broader than that. And all the existing reports that we produce out of Acela, which are built by consultants coming in from Acela to a bespoke design, and which are quickly overtaken with staff churn by kind of a lack of knowledge about what these historic reports are really still doing. So we get left with a lot of cluster in the system, and we're slowly working out which of those need to be built in Power BI. With the changed way of working, the service will be taught how to produce their own reports, configure their own reports, make them available via the website, especially PS1 and PS2 will go onto the website. But the idea is that they will no longer need to rely on consultants coming in from Acela to build their own reports. And all the other Acela councils, as we say, will be brought into the process at the right stage once we're a bit clearer and we have some initial prototypes to showcase an usability test. I'm going to invite Georgia to discuss anything we've missed.
Thank you, Matthew. No, I think you covered everything. I guess before we go on to our last slide, we give a lot of emphasis on designing around the user needs. As Matthew highlighted, around our, if I may say, core users, we have about 70% agents actually that are using our form, our pre-application advice form, and we've been quite proactive on reaching out to them, and we have already 5 agents that work with us on regular basis that have committed to participate in user research. So currently we are designing the first initial wireframes to create a prototype of what our pre-application form will look like in order to be able to test that with the agents that came forward, but also share that initial prototype with the other councils that they are, of course, interested in getting more insights on how we're going to be developing this further. Yeah, that was all from me, Matthew. Thank you. And the next slide, please, Santal. Thank you.
So yeah, the outcomes, the pre-applications e-form is always there to be used by customers. We get a lot of complaints from people around the pre-app service, largely about once they've submitted their PDF details through email or the contact center, about updates subsequently about when they can get their pre-application advice appointment. So through the use of GovNotify, appointment reminders, customer survey information about how we're doing using Notify, and clearer SLAs, and also just mainly taking away all this to and fro with customers from the back office, advising on more information they may need to be able to provide the advice, etc. We believe that the staff will have more time to be able to meet those SLAs around provision of the service. So a reduction in complaints is key. Manual processing of customer requests and cross-referencing. So it goes on between at least 3 or 4 different systems. And when we get to providing the advice itself is rewritten up and emailed back to the customer and then entered into Acela as well. All of that will be fully integrated in the way described with our first slide. We want 2 or 3% really to be going through to the contact center who are point blank refusing to use the e-form for whatever reason, and one hopes that would be more, I don't know, residential householders who are doing smaller development plans and perhaps are very unaccustomed to using digital solutions. We think that with the agencies brought into the user-centered design approach, especially where we're aware of agents who consistently submit invalid applications, that we can improve that and help mandate that through the e-form. And with all the income management being tied up so that nobody has to check payment receipts against pre-app booking details. And so we want the planning service to be able to build all their own new reports in Power BI and exploit all data, any identifiable data point in a cellar. And we want a suite of strategic reports to be made available at the point we go live in week 12. PS1 and PS2 will be dynamically updated on the council website, and it should not be necessary to have kind of guides of how to do all of that in Power BI, we hope. The overall service, we hope, will be used more, and we hope that there will be a higher conversion through to planning applications from 16% through to 32% in year 2. I think that's everything.
That's brilliant. All right, thank you, Matt and Georgia. Great. Colchester, over to you.
Thanks, Chantal. Yeah, my name is Simon Cairns. I'm the development manager for Colchester. I'm a planner by trade and fiercely committed to a customer-focused service. There are 3 dimensions essentially to our project. They are increasing efficiency through automation and improving the customer experience, and finally inclusion and participation in planning. So there are 3 basic foundations that we're trying to build upon. So we're at a gateway in the future of our service in terms of we are now migrating to a new platform. Our existing platform's been in use for a couple of decades and is now rather slow and long in the tooth, and clearly of its own time. So we're working in partnership with NEC Assure, not just to take an off-the-shelf product, but actually to take a product, finesse it and customize it to ensure that it actually maxes opportunities to deliver a revolutionary step forward in the quality of our planning service, not only for our customers, but also for staff, members, indeed all of those who participate in our planning functions. Colchester has a very long and illustrious past, back to AD 46. We're probably the first civic centre in Britain, and we're very proud of that. But we're not backward looking. We are one of the fastest growing boroughs. We deliver over 920 units per year, but that's married with a great deal of commitment to quality of design and environmental protection. So we've got hugely important coastal resources in terms of overwintering birds and estuarine environments. We've got the Dedham Vale area of outstanding natural beauty, and then we've got a very important nationally, internationally important, really, Roman walled town. So we're a bit like an Italian Roman hill town in many ways. So we look forward, but we look past, and we build on our illustrious past to improve matters for our residents and our customers. So we're working in partnership with NEC, and I'm joined today by Catherine from NEC, who's going to talk you through some more technical aspects of the project. But I'll hand over now to Catherine for the next slide.
Thanks very much, Simon. So I'm Catherine from NEC. I don't know about the rest of you, but I want to go and visit Colchester now. It sounds really excellent. But as Simon rightly says, you know, this project for us is all about revolutionising how customers are accessing planning services. And one of the key things to that that we believe we can add to the party there is the use of spatial data. So we've got some technical capability in our kit bag already, using open source GIS components, and our aim is to work with Colchester to see how these can significantly improve the user experience of the planning service from start to finish. Now, obviously, there's enormous power in spatial data, and some of that data may already be within the planning database itself, and some of it will be from external sources. But part of this exercise will be to see how we can bring all that really important data together to offer real value and in real time, importantly in real time. So on the next slide, Simon's going to give you a bit more information about the areas that we'll be exploring.
Great, thank you, Catherine.
So thanks, Chantal. So our partnership with NEC will explore through a programme of themed workshops the art of the possible with regard to interactive live spatial data. So putting GIS at the beating heart of our service, reducing invalid planning applications, so stopping rubbish getting into the system, all those invalid half alive, half dead, zombie applications you've got lurking in your bottom drawer. We don't need any of that. We need to cut out that from our system. So we need customer-led applications through a single system, exclusively digital channels. So, you know, really cutting the tape of bureaucracy with all of that paper that has so led to further development of rather cul-de-sac innovation. So we're looking to improve the customer experience and engagement. So as I mentioned, trying to improve participation in planning, ensure that we're a very inclusive service. So we engage with all of our communities, not just segments of it, through a much easier and modern system of engagement, and indeed improve transparency and confidence for stakeholders. I think one of the things that you know, we're all accused of is that planning tends to engage with certain sectors of society, tends to engage in a very traditional model, but we need to really step forward. We need to ensure that we communicate through all forms of mobile devices at all times of the day and night. So that data is there for people to drill down to at their leisure and have bespoke search capacity at all times. So I'll hand you over back to Catherine now.
So I'd like to give you a bit of information about the team and our relationship with Colchester. So we've been working with Colchester for a couple of years now. They've been implementing different modules from our Assure platform, and the timing is beautiful because they're just at the point of wanting to implement our planning module now. So over that period of time, obviously we've built quite a good relationship, and it's led to an atmosphere where we can have a very open discussion about what needs are, and us bringing to the table what technical capability might be there to help meet those needs. So for this Pathfinder, what we've done is we've brought some of the people from that established team together, but also adding the additional massively important planning expertise. So Simon and his team. And then from the NEC side, I've got a product manager and a business consultant who specialise in planning, one of which till last year was working within a local authority. A business analyst who will be helping us with any additional user research or wireframing that we need. And then, as you would imagine, with NEC, we've got any sort of capability technical capability we can draw upon for GIS expertise, technical architecture, database stuff, anything that we need to bring into the project. So that's a bit about the team. If we could go on to the next slide, please, Chantal, and I'll just talk about next steps, which are our final slide, really. So we're right at the start of the project. We've got information, obviously, that we're trying to bring together that Colchester have already done. We're going to get the wider team together over the next week and really kick it off. And when we say pin it down, we really want to pin it down to exactly what we want to look at in some more detail. We will be looking at the current user journey, and we will be starting from the point of application to see where there is static data. But I think it's really important to say that we don't just want to replicate the old paper process. You know, go back to what Simon said on the first slide. We want to revolutionize things. We don't necessarily want to do things in the same old way. And where can that spatial data help us rethink how things are done? So once we've had those initial sessions, just to flush that out, what we're going to do, what priority order we're going to do it in, we will test that thinking with the wider audience, and then we can start to bring in, and at our next session, I'd like to think that we'd be able to bring back some more detail of the scope of what we're doing and some thoughts we've had on the technical capability that we can bring to it. I think that's it. Is that everything for Simon? I think
Yes,
we're done,
thanks.
Chantal.
That's fantastic. Thank you both very much. All right. So, well, that was absolutely brilliant from all of you. Thank you ever so much for all participating so well there. That was a really great overview, and we're very ahead of time, so we've got lots of opportunity for an open forum and questions in a moment. So just to let the audience know, sort of for others that follow the Pathfinders, sort of the plan. We've got monthly project updates and blog posts on Medium, as Matt originally sort of said in his intro. So there will be sort of another 2 sort of show and tells over the next few months, and then a final showcase one, very similar to this, and which is actually at the end of April, and then a final report published shortly after. So there'll be a lot of information gathering from that. So please, all, you're very welcome to join in the future, and anybody else that would like to. So now, open to discussion. I will, oh, didn't mean to go to that one. I need to just come back to stop sharing and come back to the meeting and open it up for discussion. I believe a number of questions have been opened up, and so would anybody like to start a discussion up? I think Will Hensman, you've actually put on here, is there a risk of some of these projects that are bespoke individual solutions? Would you like to have a chat about that and ask your question? Or I think hello there. So
hello, I'm his colleague Ian. I don't know where he's gone.
He's dropped off, but he's right. I was actually sort of interested in sort of you know, the question around sort of bespoke and sort of anything like that. You know, what the plan was. I think even in my career, I've sort of found if you bespoke anything, it then sort of becomes troublesome going forwards. I think Simon, correct me if I'm wrong here, but yourself and Catherine are looking at, and maybe this is a question more for Catherine, but rather than bespoke, it's possibly more just because it will be open source and still available. It's more sort of just making it usable and sort of changeable, I suppose, to each individual council's needs and that type of thing. Is that more the?
Yeah. So if I come off mute, yes, I have. Good. Yeah, as I say, we'll be using open source componentry for our GIS solution. We have that already, and obviously that's then plugged into our Azure platform. So you know, we will be very open about what componentry we've used, and I think a lot of the value, just going back to what Matt said right at the beginning, you know, this is kind of sometimes less about developing solutions, isn't it, and more about showing what's possible. So yes. I think as an example, as something we have discussed outside of this call, you know, doing allowing a customer or a member of staff to draw something on a map, or draw a polygon, or draw a, you know, a circle to say, right, everyone within that area needs to be consulted. You know, these are things that will be shared as part of this project, and to share the value of doing that capability. So it's not just the final solution. I think that has enormous value. It's sharing that learning as we've gone along.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And that's part of this Pathfinders project, is actually sort of seeing what can be achieved, how it can be achieved, and then how it can be shared, and sort of in what sort of format. Oh, there's some more chat coming up.
Well, I had a couple of questions there that's jumped in before Phil, which I'm sure he'll forgive me for. Yeah, I was interested in the TPO's presentation because we've had issues reconciling historic planning data with legal and property burden data, and I was wondering if that project was looking at new orders or if it was retrospective as well. And I guess the only other thing I've mentioned is I really like using FME, so love it, it's great. So that's for the Nottingham project.
Excellent. So yes, yeah, that I noticed that, and I was just going, I think when I was on, there was a few sort of mentions of different areas of coming in, but Nottingham was mentioned as well. So sorry, Ian. Sorry, I could just see there's a few hands popping up. Let me just go to those. Tom Gaylor.
Hi, thanks, Chantel. Thank you, everyone, for your presentations. I'm a designer who's been working on the BOPS project, so it's really interesting to see some of these areas that we've been thinking about sort of getting the sort of specific attention they need. So I was just wondering what the best way would be to share some of the research that we have done that may be interesting. So just sort of to pick one out, like Dukesbury talking about communicating with applicants or agents to keep them up to the date with the progress. It's something we have been thinking about as part of it. So just the best ways to pass along that, make use of that information or research that we've done. Well, first, just to say, get in contact with me if there might be something useful. But yeah,
definitely, and that's sort of that's really helpful, and we're looking for anybody that's got interest in the different things that are coming up through this. So you're Tom Gaylor, and which LPA are you from, Tom?
So I actually work for a contractor who's working on the BOPS project with Southwark, Buckinghamshire, and Lambeth. But I myself work for a contractor.
Okay, brilliant. That's great. Well, thank you very much. That's I've made a note, and we'll definitely get in touch with you. Thank you for that. Have more conversations going forwards. Helen Carotti, I believe you have your hand raised.
Hi there, thank you. Sorry, I'll just take my hand down so it's not a historic hand. Okay, I'm sorry, I've got a number of questions, so if that's okay, I've probably got one for each of the projects, if that's all right, and then a general comment. Okay, so I'll just go through in order, thank you. So in Basingstoke, in terms of the use of Power BI, that's something that we've just started to look at, and obviously there's sort of issues around sharing and licensing, and really it's just kind of where you're going to fund that from, because obviously within the Power BI sort of basic, if you like, you can go so far, but the issue is in the sharing, and clearly that's sort of where the efficiencies are going to be gained in the sharing. That's question one. Sevenoaks, in terms of your TPO, like you, we've had a TPO interactive map on Esri since since 2019, and we already have our sort of confirmation documentation as part of that interactive mapping. Is your project about sort of trying to find a much more auto-populated way of kind of populating your GIS mapping? At the moment, it requires a kind of a manual process. How we do it requires a member of staff actually uploading onto the Esri map. North Devon, Section 106. This is close to my heart. I also, as well as being business improvement, I also manage the Section 106 and SIL team. In terms of kind of that live data, does that very much then depend on kind of spending service colleagues doing their bit? Because whilst, in terms of the LPA, we're responsible and you can manage your own staff, it's sometimes sort of getting partners to do their bit in terms of updating. Sorry, I didn't have anything to say about Harrow, but I find that really interesting. Tewkesbury, that frightens the life out of me, I have to say, in terms of a tracker, given the kind of the historic situation with application workload. We've just got huge backlogs. Are you sort of anticipating getting on a level playing field, as it were, before you start putting that in? We've had situations where our validation has been kind of 4 weeks behind at the moment, and that's terrible customer service, but it largely just sort of comes down to resources. And so I think I'd be interested to know what you're doing around your messaging of customers around that. Nottingham, FME, is that similar to Power BI? Just question. And that was it. Oh, and sort of my kind of overarching question really is, are all of these projects kind of based on either Northgate or iDocs, so kind of legacy software? Because obviously, again, I think that's just sort of a big issue, isn't it, for local authorities per se, in terms of, this is old technology. And I know obviously they're moving to much more, they've got a cloud-based offering now, but it's kind of where iDocs goes next, given it's been around for a long time. So sorry, but thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Helen. I think we sort of, I've made a note of some of your questions. I think some of them really, I don't know whether we want to open it up to anybody from those LPAs if they wanted to answer any of your questions at this stage, or I can share them.
Let me just take our first one, as we were first.
By all means.
We use iDocs DMS as well, just in terms of your overarching question. And in terms of your question about our licenses, we have Power BI all installed on our own systems. And I'm a planner, not a IT guru at all. Apparently we don't have the right licenses, so we would need to pay for licenses to be upgraded for any user that needs it. And I think that's about £10 a user. So if that was just the planning team or the DM officers, then it's not a very significant amount. But our conversations have progressed along. Well, what does that look like if actually? Because actually Power BI is more than just planning. It's something that we might be able to use wider in the organisation for other teams apart from DM. And if that looks like it will be the possible in the future with where our authority are going, then there might be an economy of scale of you buying other software that happens to software packages that happens to include Microsoft Power BI rather than just buying a few licenses. But I think for the purposes of this project, we'll probably just buy a few licenses that lets us work up any prototypes that we might be working on. I think that was it.
Oh, that's great. Thanks very much for that, Greg. So
would you like me to cover off the TPO, Chantal?
Oh, definitely, that would be fantastic.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sure. Okay, thanks, Helen, for your question. So just as a background, really, we use uniform iDocs and we have enterprise that maps around all of that. So at the moment, if customer submits, for example, a planning application via the planning portal, that application will download into uniform and iDocs, and we can publish that on public access. And then we use enterprise as a wraparound workload and workflow tool. So that covers the application side. So that covers off anybody that submits an application to do the works to trees. And also sitting around that, we use Notify to text customers. So as soon as an application is received, right through to a decision's issued, we pull information from Uniform into Notify and we text customers along the way and we give them progress updates. The missing link in all of that is that we are able to publicise all of our application data and constraint data via the map online. So we use Esri to publish all constraint data and application information, so historic planning application information. And so a customer can go onto a website, discover, look through the list of constraints by address, and it will tell them whether a site is covered by a conservation area or tree preservation order. The missing link is then being able to download a copy of the TPO from iDocs where we've got it stored. So that's where we're stuck at the moment, and that's what we'd just like to open up, that improve that process for customers to find out the information, download the TPO, submit the application, which will all come through to uniform iDocs and ultimately public access. Does that help?
That's great. Thank you very much, Evelyn. Did that help, Helen? You're on mute at the moment, so.
It did.
There you go.
Thank you. Yeah, somewhere that we really need to get to in terms of all of our constraint information on there, and we've just renewed our validation criteria, and so kind of that's a piece of work to go forward in order, you know, so that you've got all of that data just available there for customers rather than this endless toing and froing. So yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. Okay, so there's a number of you interested in sort of Power BI side of things as well. There's a lot going on with several different LPAs, so we're planning on probably setting up a workshop for anybody that might be interested in that. So I can certainly sort of see who that may interest going forwards. And then,
Sorry, Chantal, do you want me to come back in terms of the backlog thing for our planning application tracker?
Absolutely, yes, please. Thank
you.
So
it is obviously you know, a big issue. We do have backlogs in our planning team as well. It is something that they're working on at the moment to sort of try and get on a level playing field, although how realistic that will actually be and how that will stay obviously is very dependent on what comes in and the resources that are there. So we are sort of thinking about different options that we can use to address this, and one of the ideas is that maybe they would have sort of an admin section in the background of this planning application tracker where they can sort of amend the average turnaround times for these applications and the average different stages. So that's one thing that we're sort of looking at, and obviously this is really early stages for us, so nothing's sort of set in stone yet, but it's one of the things that we've thought about. So for the different application types, they might put an average turnaround time. Some might be sooner than that, some might take longer, but the applicant and agent would get notified when they move to the next stage. So it's not just focused on, it's not going to automatically move to the next stage after, say, 4 weeks. It would look at the data from uniform and move as that sort of dates are updated in the right fields and things like that. So that's sort of how we're thinking it might work, but it's definitely something on our radar that it's
also very individual for applications rather than sort of time-based, which would be fantastic, because obviously some must take a lot longer than others depending on the you know, how complicated it is and that type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So really we want to work with iDocs to get that data so it's actually live data based on what's in uniform rather than just an automated thing that moves through on a set period of time, because that's not sort of giving them the right information.
Fantastic, that's great. Thank you very much for that overview, Amy. Does that help at all with your question, Helen? With you've had multiple questions and multiple answers, which is fantastic. You're still on mute if you didn't know.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think it's just the thorny issue at the moment in terms of just backlogs, isn't it? Until we all local authorities get some kind of semblance of new normal, to use that horrible phrase.
Yes, I think sort of my overview of so far of all of this is that those particular issues are sort of similar across all LPAs, really. Sort of it's sort of, as I think Simon was saying with his overview with Catherine from NEC, it's just sort of long-standing, the same old sort of, and it's just start again and sort of work out what works, you know, more for this day and age, you know. As I think, you know, is said around the different usage of sort of 24/7, so it's not sort of restricted to people's working hours, because think about it, a lot of people work night shifts, all sorts of things, and they want to be, you know, sort of looking at stuff in our sort of night time and their daytime. It's all, you know, people have very different lifestyles these days, and everything is very you know, sort of tablet based and sort of, you know, digital. So it's the right way to go, and this is part of that that process, which is fantastic. So
did you want me to come back at all in terms of FME, Helen?
If you wouldn't mind, Laura, that would be great. Thank you.
FME is a data kind of modelling, data extraction tool. So we use that currently to model lots and lots of data, but we use it to pull information out of uniform, attach the spatial components, translate some of that data, so it's not just the raw information that's coming out, but if the field says this, it could be this, and currently push that information in various different ways. But we've been using it to push things to dashboards, but the dashboards themselves aren't created by FME, so that we could push that information to Power BI, we could push that information, as we do, to Esri based dashboards, and so it's kind of that middle sort of software. The reason we want to explore what we FME server is that it allows us greater ability to at the moment we schedule tasks, so we say, right, run this model every night, every week, what have you, but it can actually be pushed by, say, if you make a change within a particular case, if that happens, then rerun this model so that the data refreshes. And also with server you can create sort of online forms so that a non-specialist can put in some parameters and get a report back. So someone can create a complicated model, but here's some easy, do you want this, this and this, and they can fill that in and get an answer, which without needing to be a uniform user and without needing to be an FME user. So we're just hoping it would open up the information to a wider audience.
Thank you.
That's great. Michael, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I feel a bit left out because I didn't get a direct question. So could I just answer one of the points that Ellen raised? What she was asking is which technologies are being used here, whether it's Northgate or whatever. We have a spread of technology, or a spread of suppliers here. So we've got NEC, iDocs, Acela, DEF. There are a few other technologies there. And an interesting point is, how do we share those technologies around those? It's almost like we want one system to rule them all in a way. But I think at the end of the day, it may be a more, or it's more of an, which way is this going? It'll be interesting to see how this develops going forward, and possibly beyond the Pathfinder program of work, whether we have some technologies which are a little bit like plug and play, where all systems can feed into one. Because I almost feel, looking at this, that it does need one system that we can all use, that we're all joined up and we can all share around. But I think that the way it is, the way that the current lay of the land is, that there are a number of technologies, and probably more as it goes forward, that there will be other technologies that come up. And I think if there can be some sort of integration between them all, I think that would be a really good outcome. And I think that would help a lot of councils as well in sharing information, because essentially we're all doing the same thing, but in some ways using different technologies.
Yes, you're absolutely right, Mark, and that's the whole purpose of this Pathfinder, essentially for seeing if we can actually work with all the different suppliers that are available to us to actually get to open source or open systems, and going forward share. That's the purpose. So it's exactly that. So, but you're right. It at the moment it's obviously sort of all on different systems and spread about. But Michael, you had your hand up. Oh, sorry, Matt.
I just thought I should probably add something to that, because it's definitely not our vision as central government funding this stuff that we're moving in any way, shape, or form towards kind of the one tool to rule them all. I think yeah, as you've all both said just then, like moving towards a more open marketplace where there's choice, but it's not just a case of, well, I have to work through a whole complicated migration process just in order to use a different setup or a different tool. I think that's the bit that we really want to help smooth over. So yeah, plug and play is maybe quite a utopian ideal of where we're hoping to get to, but something that's moving in that direction, absolutely be encouraged. And then Helen and everyone on the call, just to give you a bit more kind of detail in our selection process behind this, we did of course invite people to present ideas, but also to explain to us who they were working with. We didn't make any decisions based on that in terms of the kind of incumbent software systems that people have got. But what we have broadly got is we've got a couple of NEC customers here, DEF customer, Orcella customer, and a few iDocs customers. So there is a fairly good spread. I think there's a couple of notable exceptions that you might be familiar with, other companies that are not represented just because the bids didn't come through. But we absolutely want to be supporting councils to work with everyone that's present in the market just to improve it. I think that the term "a rising tide lifts all ships" has been used before, and hopefully that's the sort of thing that we're helping to facilitate.
Yes, thank you, Matt. That really puts a good picture on it, and the way forward. I noticed, Michael, you've had your hand up, so if you'd like to go ahead, and I believe somebody else has from the group.
Yeah, it's just a couple of things really, just to close out. So my name is Michael. I work for DLUHC as well, and just a few things that I noticed, the sort of overlap between what a lot of people were talking about. I've shared a link to Local Gov Digital. There isn't a GIS or FME or planning channel in the Local Gov Digital Slack, and it sounds like there should be, because that cross-government conversation, the fact that you're all having like a productive conversation here, obviously this is an organised event and everyone's come together and you're from the same fields, but actually these questions could be asked in Local Gov Digital Slack in an open way. If people in here will join that, it's just like Microsoft Teams, just a chat channel where you can ask questions. We use it all the time. We're working with a supplier on the RIPA project, which is for reducing invalid planning applications. They're looking to implement like a login system that doesn't require you to create an account. And by asking questions on one of these channels, I found someone in the Cabinet Office who's done exactly the same sort of thing. And they're in a meeting with us tomorrow to share their learning. And I think that lots of this shared learning, especially around things around data, dashboards, reporting, you're all going to be doing something very similar. And if you're not doing something similar, if you haven't already got something, you could probably pilfer the work of someone else. Certainly, if it's something like Power BI based, you can just, map in somebody else's, reports to your own data fields and probably get a lot of reusability that way. I think to put the final piece of the jigsaw puzzle in the conversation that Mark mentioned around, like, wouldn't it be good if all this software could work together a bit better, and like the plug and play, and allow the way that you get one system to rule them all is really you have one set of one data schema or one set of data structures that everyone is following. So it doesn't matter what thing you use, it all just works and it all can talk to each other. Whereas if we create a form or a report dashboard for a seller, I'm pretty sure it won't just be a plug and play thing for NEC, because obviously these products have all been developed individually. So I think there is also the digital land team within the planning program who are looking at data standards as well. And so hopefully in the future, some of these data standards will come out, and that will increase the amount of interoperability that will be possible using existing technology, and so things will be less painful. But we need to learn about these things as well, and we need to know where the pain points are. And I think by having conversations in an open place like in Local Gov Digital, I think one of us should probably set up a little planning software chat channel in there for you to be part of. And certainly we're looking at starting some kind of user group or working group for planning data, and that'll include dashboards. I'm really interested in the FME stuff as well. I hadn't heard about it previously until joining here, and someone I think who's on this call was waxing lyrical about it and certainly convinced me of its value. So it'd be good just to see those conversations develop so that we can incorporate into other parts of the programme as well, and so that we can sort of spread the word amongst the councils that we work with. So it'd be really good if people could at the very least join Local Gov Digital, and I'm in there, wave, say hello, and if you're not sure about how to start a conversation or a channel, we can pick that up.
Yes, thank you, Michael. I'm actually also on there, and Evelyn and I believe yourself from Sevenoaks and Fraser has actually already joined and sort of installed it and has started to get it going. So how, if you're still on, are you able to say what your experience was of doing that?
Yeah, we've joined. I mean, I just go in and have a look. I haven't actually done any more than that at the moment. So yes, but I absolutely agree with Michael. There's lots of forums on the Knowledge Hub and PAS. So having a similar type forum on Local Gov for planning is a great idea. I would definitely use that. It's a really great idea, a great way of sharing questions and information.
That's great, thank you. And if any of you are able to, I know you have to sort of get permission sort of and approve on that sort of thing to upload it in some cases, but it definitely would be worth it. Just bearing in mind we've got a couple of other hands raised. Matt Riddle.
Hi, yeah, just to follow on from Michael's point, really. So Tom kindly came and reviewed the seller workflows with the service last week, and we've been trying to send him a recording. The file's too large, and if we try and share a link out of our Teams folders, it doesn't work with external parties. And I know our ICT team kind of infosec policy isn't quite clear on Slack and Trello. They seem to get a bit nervous about the idea of us using it. So I was wondering whether there was just a plan for how we can do that, really, without breaching our internal policies or lack of internal policies.
For sharing large files and that type
well,
of thing.
Yeah,
well,
just how we can connect with your local digital Slack channels without too onerous set of approvals needed internally.
Michael, are you able to help with guidance on that?
This is a case of buttering up the right people most of the time, unfortunately, because it's definitely a bit of a nightmare. Something that on the other project, the project that I'm working with most closely, we've just taken on eight new councils, and we've given them a list of software that we are using on these projects. We are using them in Central Gov. Central Gov are using Slack, not just like across the board. So I would kind of say if it's okay for us, it should be okay for you. The Local Gov Digital Slack doesn't have, I think it's got like a bit of a self-destruct thing. So things don't stay around forever. It's the same as the Central Gov Slack. It is much more for conversation rather than ending up as being like a historical resource of data, which unfortunately is I'd say one of the only downsides. It is nice that a conversation lives on forever, but because these things can be FOI'd, they take the view that they should just have a cull every now and then. But yeah, Central Gov are using it. So if the IT security people have got a problem, it'd be interesting to point them maybe towards Central Gov and ask how come it's okay for them. And that should shut it down. I mean, the list of software that we're promoting the use of on our projects is extensive, and we know that, yeah, we're going to get some IT teams who would just say, what's this? And Trello as well is another one that, because you can share files, basically, is why they'll be concerned. But as for the large file question, you could see if we transfer is unblocked, and if not, if Google Drive as well. So we usually upload ours to Google documents to Google Drive and share those that way.
Thank you. Yeah.
Great. All right. Thank you, Michael and Matthew. Stephen Bramwood, I believe you have a question.
Yeah, hi everyone. Really great presentations and some really interesting stuff coming out for the Pathfinders. So thanks for taking the time to walk us through it today. At Geoplace, obviously, we're working with local authorities to collect and reference property information, and kind of our role in the world is to try and join up information around property. And one of the things I'm particularly interested in is recording property life cycle information as it goes through from kind of land inquiry through planning and then building control and then out to other council applications like council tax and electoral roll and everything else that you guys are involved in. Beyond that, then information from local government stored against a property is valuable in the market, home buying and selling, and some of the things that colleagues at DLUHC are involved in. And I was just wondering what considerations people have made around attributing unique property reference numbers, using address space, those kind of things as part of the planning software development.
I was just going to say we're using address space. I'm pretty sure we're using address space on the Ripper project, and we've had quite a lot of conversations about this. And UPRNs are a constant sort of point of discussion, really, around because of the different application types that may not have a UPRN initially, and also how we create UPRNs. I don't have much more information to give you out of my own mind, but I can, if you want to pick it up with me outside of this, unless anyone else has got anything to add, I can certainly probably get those questions answered, to be honest with you, because I'll be speaking to the development team tomorrow.
Excellent. From the local authority, so just from local authority colleagues, really, just how are UPRNs used as part of planning systems?
Sorry, is that some? Oh, Matt, is that something you can answer? Sorry.
Well, I think the invitation is for anyone that's working at the coalface to kind of share where your thinking is at on this. And Stephen, if people aren't jumping out, it suggests that maybe not particularly far along at the moment, unless anyone.
Can I help with this? It's Catherine from NEC.
Yeah.
Stephen, I can just tell you what we do. Obviously, we import the addresses and UPRNs from the Gazetteer, and then that forms a key part of the planning record.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously against that record, we are holding spatial data, which then allows us to do the mapping and the project that we aspire to do. So whenever we're talking about a property within the NEC system, the UPRN is the key to that.
That's great, and it may well be that it's hard kind of baked into the applications that you're using to to manage objectives. And I don't know that IDOCS and others that the UPRM forms part of it. Without kind of labouring the point, and I'll pick it up with colleagues at DLUHC, but the kind of the use of a unique identifier through the planning process and into building control and collecting life cycle information as it goes through is incredibly valuable, both within local authorities and out in the more commercial markets as well. So you could be able to trace a property through from the moment that somebody is interested in that for development purposes all the way through to, you know, essentially it's knocking it down, to have a unique code against and a unique reference against that property that stays with that property all the way through, enables you to attribute a whole bunch of information along the way to that property, and that's, as I say, very, very valuable, both for conducting local authority services, but out with as well. But certainly I'm really interested because actually it's the opportunity to sort of really work closely with around planning, particularly planning and building control to manage properties through that process. So yeah, really keen to pick up some conversations around that. Thanks.
That's great. Thank you, Catherine, and thanks for the questions, Stephen. So there's lots of messages going back and forth as well. So lots of things to have really sort of lots of conversations around. So as Michael was saying about if you can get on the Slack channel, that will really open this up, I think, for sure. Just bear in mind we've got about 20 minutes left. We don't have to use all that time. So is there any other questions anyone would like to raise, or any other information to offer, or anything of that nature? It's been an absolutely fantastic first show and tell and event launch, that's for sure. So really interactive and great presentations. So anything else to come up, or Matt, anything from yourself before we let everybody go? Oh, is there another question? Let me just see.
I suppose that Sally can answer that question, can't I? We'll be publishing later this week that first kind of blog post on Medium. We'll send links around to everyone who registered on the Eventbrite. So we've only got your email addresses if you registered there, and or if you're involved in one of the project teams. And so we'll be sending out updates and, for example, invites to the next show and tell to everyone there. We'll include within that the recording of this and the slide deck. And I'm just going to put our generic email address, which is digitalplanningteam@levelingup.gov.uk, into the chat here. And then if you're worried that you're not on any of the mailing lists, then please just drop us a quick email and we'll add you to that list and make sure you're able to stay up to speed on everything that's going on over the coming months.
That's great. Thanks, Matt. So lovely. Okay, so it sounds like there's lots of things to share and then more show and tells in the future. So I look forward to another big audience. So if there's nothing else, I will say thank you very much to all, and I'll let you get about 20 minutes back. Fantastic. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Paul.
Bye. Bye.